believe in afterlife awareness, and I do believe that Shanann and Nico and Bella and Cece have access. And
What did they say to me when they came to see me?
have they?
Yes.
And what did Cece say?
The first night when they found Shannon's body, I'm going to be honest with you, Dr. Phil. I was laying in the bed weeping so hard, talking to God, and I said, you know, I could just end my life now and go find my daughter. I had fallen asleep. The next morning, I get a phone call, and they found Shannon's body. I said, do you want me to identify her on the phone? And he said, yeah, you could do that. And I said, is she beautiful? He said, yes. I said, does she have black hair? And he said, yes. And I said, then you have my daughter. That night, I was laying in bed, and I just felt a presence, and I heard my daughter. I felt her, and I heard her say, I love you, Mommy, and I'm sorry. She told me she was at peace. I finally fell asleep with my daughter at my presence, and she slept with me. I just felt her. The following day, I get a phone call, and they said, Sandy, we found your granddaughter, but we're not sure which one. And I said, Bella's a little taller. She's pretty slimmer. She's not, she don't get a little belly. And if you pull her hair up a little bit, because I do their hair, and it would be so long, you know, and then I realized all the oil, they would never know. So they said, who's the one that wears a pull-up? Right. And I said, that would be Cece. They said, well, then we have Cece. And I said, well, keep going. I said, find my Bella. And 2 hours later, they did.
It was hard for them to even tell us. You know, you could hear it in their voices. I couldn't imagine trying to be in their shoes, trying to tell the parents what they just found. Yeah.
And it was 2 hours later that they said they had found
Yeah, she was
Bella.
at the bottom of the drum. And their skin was falling off as they were trying to get them out. Everybody needed so much therapy after that. Our hearts just go out to all of them that work so damn hard on this case.
And you felt Cece and Bella's presence.
I felt Cece's presence. She was first. And she goes, hi, Nana. And I could see her, but in my mind, you know, but I could hear her. And she said, you've been always so good to us, Nana. And we love you with our soul. And I always took their face and kissed them all over. And she grabbed my face and just kissed me all over. And Shannon said, it's okay now. And we gave kisses, and she turns her to her left. And then Bella came in, and Bella went like kind of like, hi, Nana, you know? You know, just like the way she, I don't know, just the way she did it, yeah. And she said, guess what, Nana? And I said, what, Bella? And she said, I can go to Walt Disney World anytime I want. And I said, that's right, Bella. That's right. She thanked us for loving her so much.
And that's how you remember those two?
Yes, after I saw Bella and Cece, and then Shannon was standing there. I could see her body, but like kind of like see through, and then just her upper part turned, and then I couldn't see who was handing the baby to her, and she handed me my grandson, and looks just like Frankie. It's crazy, but looks just like Frankie.
It's August 2018. The air in Frederick, Colorado is heavy and still. Shanann is just getting back from a business trip, pregnant, exhausted, and trying to hold her life together. From the outside, she looks like the picture of stability, the smiling mother, the thriving entrepreneur, the woman who believed her husband loved her. But hundreds of miles away, in North Carolina, her mother, Sandra Rzucek, can't shake a feeling she doesn't understand. Something inside her won't rest. The house is quiet, but her mind is loud, replaying moments, texts, and silences that don't feel right. Later, she'll tell Dr. Phil that she felt it. That mother's intuition that creeps in before the world collapses. I tried to warn her, she said, her voice breaking through tears. I just had this feeling something bad was coming. At that time, Shanann brushed it off, the way many of us do when life is moving too fast to stop. She trusted Chris, or at least she wanted to. He was distant, cold, different, but she believed love could still reach him. That night, she came home, unaware that her husband had already made up his mind. Some stories begin with a scream. This one begins with silence, and a mother's warning that came too late. And before we go deeper into this story, into the call, the confession, and the chilling intuition that haunts every parent's heart, make sure to subscribe to Sinister Tales, because sometimes evil announces itself quietly, long before it strikes. Sandra Rzucek's words still echo in the darkness. I knew something was wrong. I just didn't know it was already too late. The morning after Shanann returned home, the world shifted forever. Chris Watts told police his wife and daughters were missing. He said he didn't know where they went. He sounded calm, too calm. And while officers walked through that pristine suburban home, cameras caught what would later haunt everyone who watched. A man pretending to search for the family he had already destroyed. Hundreds of miles away, Shanann's mother, Sandra, felt her chest tighten. She had been trying to reach her daughter, no answer. Texts went unread. Calls rang out. Something inside her snapped. I just knew, she would say later, through tears. A mother knows. When the news broke that Shanann was gone, Sandra screamed. It wasn't disbelief, it was confirmation. That instinct she had tried to push away had finally bared its teeth. In interviews, she said she had begged Shanann to come home just days before, begged her to stay safe, to take a break, to get away from Chris's growing coldness. But Shanann had hope. She still believed her family could be fixed. And then, she vanished. What unfolded next would feel like a movie. The press conferences, the drone footage, the neighbors whispering. But for Sandra, it wasn't a movie. It was a nightmare she'd already felt coming. She said later she could still hear her daughter's voice, could still feel her presence. Until that morning, when the silence was too heavy to ignore. If you've made it this far, take a second to like this video, because stories like this aren't just true crime, they're a warning. Sometimes the people we fear losing the most are the ones already slipping away. Sandra's intuition wasn't wrong. She was just too late to stop it. When the truth finally surfaced, it came like a storm breaking through glass. Chris Watts confessed, but only after days of lies, crocodile tears, and rehearsed charm. He told detectives where they could find Shanann, Bella, and Celeste. And suddenly, the horror Sandra Rzucek had felt in her bones became horrifyingly real. She had tried to warn her daughter. Now she would never get the chance again. In her interview with Dr. Phil, Sandra's voice trembled as she remembered those last conversations. Shanann had sounded tired. There were small cracks in her words, pauses that felt like whispers of something she couldn't bring herself to say. Sandra told the host, I begged her to come home. I just wanted her safe. But love, for Shanann, meant believing that her husband could still be saved, that their family could still heal. That belief cost her everything. When the police revealed the location, an oil site remote and lifeless, Sandra collapsed. The pain was beyond words, beyond sound. She said she screamed Shanann's name until her voice broke. I couldn't protect her, she whispered later, and that will haunt me for the rest of my life. But even as she grieved, the world began turning her pain into spectacle. Headlines, YouTube videos, podcasts, everyone wanted to understand why. But no one could explain the feeling of a mother who knew the danger before it came, who felt the darkness creeping and couldn't stop it. Before we move forward, make sure to subscribe to Sinister Tales, because this story isn't just about what happened that night. It's about what every parent fears. Sensing evil in the silence and realizing too late that your instinct was right. Sandra didn't just lose her daughter. She lost the chance to save her. In the days that followed, the world watched Chris Watts transform from a grieving husband into a convicted killer. His calm interviews, his blank eyes, his unshaken tone. Every frame replayed across the internet like a horror film on loop. But behind all that noise, somewhere far quieter, Shanann's mother, Sandra, sat in disbelief, torn between rage and heartbreak. On Dr. Phil, she spoke through tears. He stood there, she said, and lied to my face. I hugged that man. I let him in my home. The words cut like glass. To love someone through your child, and then realize that love was pointed at a monster. For Sandra, the guilt was unbearable. She had felt the signs. Chris's distance, the strange texts, Shanann's nervous smiles. But she'd never imagined the ending would come like this. I told her to come home, she whispered in one interview. I told her, but she wanted to save her marriage. That choice, that hope, would become the ghost that haunts every frame of this story. As the court revealed the evidence, the lies, the affair, the premeditation, Sandra said she could barely breathe. When she heard the confession that Bella's last words were, "Daddy," no, she broke completely. I can't forgive that, she said. I'll never forgive that. And yet, when asked what she would say to Chris now, her answer wasn't revenge. It was sorrow. I hope God has mercy on him, she said quietly. Because I can't. If you're still here, hit like, not for the crime, but for the truth. For Shanann. For every mother who's ever felt that unexplainable chill in her heart and hoped she was wrong. Sandra Rzucek wasn't wrong. She was a mother watching a nightmare unfold. One heartbeat too late. Years have passed, but for Sandra Rzucek, time doesn't heal. It repeats. Every anniversary, every headline, every photograph of Shanann's smile brings it all rushing back. The pain doesn't fade. It evolves, wrapping itself around every memory. On Dr. Phil, she said something that silenced the room. I still talk to her, she whispered. I tell her I'm sorry, because I couldn't save her. Those words, raw, trembling, capture the kind of grief that never ends. It's not just loss. It's the torment of knowing she felt the danger, saw the signs, and still couldn't stop what was coming. And that's what makes her story so haunting. This wasn't just a mother mourning her daughter. It was a mother who had sensed the storm long before it hit. Sandra's warnings, her unease, her late-night prayers. They were all dismissed as worry. But every instinct was right. Now, when she speaks, her voice carries a quiet mission. She tells other women, listen to your gut. Don't wait for proof. Don't hope love will change the person who's already showing you their darkness. Because love doesn't stop evil, it only delays it. She keeps Shanann's memory alive, not through justice, but through truth. Her daughter's story has become a warning, a tragic echo of trust misplaced and intuition ignored. And before you go, subscribe to Sinister Tales, because stories like this remind us that the real horror isn't found in monsters hiding in the dark, but in the people we think we know, smiling back at us. Sandra's words still linger like a whisper in the dark. I tried to warn her. Sometimes the scariest stories aren't about what we didn't know, but about what we knew all along and couldn't stop.